The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Hello, YouTube. I want y'all to check out some of these clips that I got going on here. And tell me what you think, and see if you can't see and hear the brainwashing going on. Make the comments in the bottom. Thumbs it up. Let it get around to everybody so they know what's going on. We're going to edit a little bit. I mean, we're going to narrate a little.
You know, the one thing about being president is after 4 years, you get pretty humble. You'd think maybe you wouldn't, but actually you become more humble. You realize what you don't know. You realize, you know, all the mistakes you make. But you also realize you can't do things by yourself. That's not how our system works. You've got to have the help and the goodwill of Congress. And what that means is you've got to make sure that constituents of members of Congress are putting some pressure on them.
Wow, he just come right out and told you, let's put some pressure on him. How much pressure we got to put on him? Well, that's just plumb terrible. Y'all listen to this next piece, and you're really going to get a little dose of it right here on the next.
Supreme Court may be forced to rule on Americans' right to carry concealed weapons in the latest twist, and turn to take place on the issue of gun control in the nation. The United States Supreme Court may decide to hear a case that could make it illegal to carry a concealed weapon. This comes after a federal appeals court in Illinois decided that a person's right to carry a concealed weapon is not protected under the Second Amendment.
Can someone please explain to me what part of the Second Amendment did they not get? Will not and cannot infringe. I don't understand how they say that holding a concealed weapon is illegal, or how it's not unconstitutional, and how come it doesn't say that in the Constitution? How do they think that they can even say that? I just don't get it. Do y'all?
Colorado, however, recently refused to reconsider a previous ruling that the state's ban on concealed carrying is unconstitutional. Because of the contradiction, it's predicted that the country's highest court will be forced to rule on the constitutionality of it once and for all.
Well, folks, it's like this. If they rule any other way than to say it's unconstitutional, for them to charge you a fee, more or less, to have a concealed weapon to start with, you should be allowed to carry a weapon concealed, unconcealed, any way you want to. That's the way the Constitution was originally written. But yet, most people don't want to do that, and I understand that. But still, the fact remains that you should be able to walk around with a gun on your hip if you want. There should not be any infringement at all against our Constitution, which they have done so over and over and over and over again, and they're not going to stop until they get all of your guns, and then you're subject to get robbed, raped, murdered, and stole from and killed by a criminal that has a gun that's not going to turn his gun in. So it's up to y'all, folks. Do we push the information? Do we push the information in the correct way? You tell me.
In the Illinois case, Peterson v. Martinez, the court said in its ruling, in light of our nation's extensive practice of restricting citizens' freedom to carry firearms in a concealed manner, we hold that this activity does not fall within the scope of the Second Amendment's protection. However, in Colorado's Moore v. Madison, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals said, the right to bear is distinct from the right to keep arms is unlikely to refer to the home.
I don't get it. They keep referring to this right to bear. You have a right to bear arms, period. Doesn't matter. Why can't you people understand this? Don't let these people brainwash you into believing that they have the control over you to not be able to carry a firearm, period. They're wrong. It's unconstitutional. They know they're unconstitutional. The whole thing.
To speak of bearing arms within one's home would at all times have been an awkward usage. A right to bear arms thus implies a right to carry a loaded gun outside the home. While the court has ruled that the Second Amendment does protect the right to own guns, and that state and local guns should recognize that right, they haven't yet ruled on carrying outside the home. An estimated 8 million Americans have concealed weapons permits.
We get reports that the U.S. Supreme Court may decide to hear a case that could ultimately make it illegal to carry a concealed weapon. Welcome to America Live, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. A big legal question today after two significant and contradictory court rulings in federal court last week. A federal appeals court in Illinois deciding that a person's right to carry a concealed weapon is not protected under the Second Amendment, while a similar court in Colorado refused to reconsider a previous ruling that the state's ban on concealed carry is unconstitutional. Because of this contradiction and the fact that similar cases are on the docket in a number of states, legal experts are now predicting the U.S. Supreme Court will wind up ruling on the constitutionality of Americans' rights to carry a concealed weapon, and that is a significant development in this effort for greater gun control.
Does it really look like she has any concern to her whether or not we can carry or have a gun or have an automatic when everybody else, the military, the police department, the FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, all them's got massive weapons that the American people do not have. But it's okay for them to have, but we're not allowed to. And we're part of that to start with. We were trained to use that. I mean, really? And we have an amendment. We're trying to amend the Constitution for this? Are you really listening to this, folks? Really?
Trace Gallagher joins us now with the news on that. Trace?
And Megyn, so while you have all this focus on whether Congress is going to enact legislation to limit semi-automatic weapons and assault rifles, these different rulings you talked about in federal courts could really be the game changer when you talk about this subject. And you have to look at how adamant these different courts were in making their rulings. For example, in Colorado, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled the Second Amendment does not give you the right to carry a concealed weapon, writing in their ruling, quoting here, "In light of our nation's extensive practice of restricting citizens' freedom to carry firearms in a concealed manner, we hold that this activity does not fall within the scope of the Second Amendment's protection." But
Slow down, dude. Slow down. You talk too fast. You just talk too damn fast. People can't understand you. You're trying to trick them, con them, into making them believe that the Second Amendment doesn't cover that. But it does. It does. Very much so. You son of a bitches on the mainstream media need to get your shit straight in your head. If y'all would do y'all's job the correct way, we wouldn't be having this problem. You want to protect your rights, don't you? For freedom of speech. It's next.
now, listen to the ruling from the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago, saying, and again I'm quoting here, "The right to bear, as distinct from the right to keep arms, is unlikely to refer to the home. To speak of bearing arms within one's home would at all times have been awkward usage. A right to bear arms thus implies a right to carry a loaded gun outside the home." Now, last year you had the 2nd Circuit Court in New York that ruled that New York residents have to prove that they face danger to obtain a concealed carry permit.
Now, how is anybody going to prove that they need a weapon to protect themselves? Let's see. You got to prove it, folks. I guess if you got a gun stuck down your damn throat and somebody's fixing to pull the trigger, I guess you might need one. But it might be too damn late then.
The 9th Circuit Court in California, the 4th Circuit in Virginia also set to take up this issue. So, as you said, the showdown will likely end up in the Supreme Court, Megyn, and here's why that's key. Because the court, of course, has ruled the Second Amendment protects the right to own guns and that state and local governments should recognize that right. But the Supreme Court has not yet ruled on rights to carry guns outside of the home And that's where this decision boils down to. Keep in mind, 8 million Americans have concealed carry permits, Megan, and now you hear from Smith & Wesson and other gun makers that the sales of handguns are far exceeding the sales of any types of rifles or other weapons.
Wow. Handguns outselling rifles and shotguns. Oh my God. Now we got the problems of people walking around with a concealed weapon. Maybe they can protect themselves now. You reckon? Or maybe it's just because they want their little bad boy policemen that go around beating people up, punching women in the face and knocking them off their feet in a protest is okay, huh? Y'all ain't reporting on none of that, putting him in jail for nothing. You're just trying to help him get off, right? You're real good.
Wow. What a case that will be if it goes up. Trace, thank you. So how likely is it that the U.S. Supreme Court will take up such a charged case? The lawyers are going to ask. And when you have the divided circuits, that's like red meat for the U.S. Supreme Court. That's exactly the kind of case they take. Coming up next hour, we will debate the likelihood and we will question how the court might rule. What are the odds right now? Keep in mind when the assault weapons ban was went into law back in '94, the NRA didn't want any cases going up to the Supreme Court back then. They didn't think they liked the Supreme Court. They didn't think it was gun friendly. They may feel differently now, but should they be comfortable? We'll take a fair and balanced look at it coming up.
Okay, they're going to take a look at that. Well, y'all can go over to wherever that channel is and watch it. I hope you enjoyed my little movie stage here, because this was a movie. This is called brainwashing propaganda to blow your mind, to make you want to give up your right to bear arms and be free from having any socialized, any illegal government to take your freedoms away from you the way that this government is doing to you. I played you a clip earlier about the Act 1871. Boy, does that law need to be appealed really bad, folks. The only way it's going to happen is if y'all push the information. So much love to y'all. Y'all have a great evening and a great day. And God help us all.
If there's a blue pill and a red pill, and the blue pill is half the price of the red pill and works just as well, why not pay half price?